Of course, on the bottom right here for Maturino. He's been on fire recently. Let's see if he can continue it. It's Future.
Training over in South Korea. Trigger, though, his opponent, I mean, I guess I've already spoiled it. With the red Protoss pieces, it's Trigger. He's been looking a lot better over the last few, I want to say few years, really. I feel like he's been on the up and up for quite a while. I mean, joining Basilisk, he's got teammates like, for example, Raynor, like, for example, Serral. You may have heard of the guys. And Trigger, yeah, definitely has been looking very solid as of late, so I feel like this is going to be a close match, honestly.
Yeah, so like 3 years ago, we saw Trigger, and he goes and plays, I think it was 3 years ago, goes and plays in a NA Apprentice season, and he 3-0, 6-0 his group. Doesn't make the finals, but he plays very well. And I think Future might have been in that group as well, actually. An incredible surprise. He qualifies for DreamHack. Like, this kid is 3 years into playing competitive StarCraft, and if some things go his way, he's at the point where I would not be surprised to see him win the Americas region. Now, things would have to go well for him, and he'd have to play at the kind of the top level that we know Trigger can play at. But 3 years in here, the growth we've seen from him is incredible. And even more recently, I think we look back, Loco, you're talking about how the last year or so has been good. I think we can go back and look to the time that he spent between ESL Masters or DreamHack Masters Jönköping last year, or Valencia, excuse me, last year, and Home Story Cup. He stayed with Roddy for a month. He was playing on the EU server. He was practicing hard. And then he actually has a really good result at Home Story Cup last year. And pretty much from that point on, it's like he figured something out, because he leveled up extremely during that period of time, and particularly in this matchup right here in this PVT.
Nothing all too crazy here so far. Futurist decided to go for the reactor, though, on that barracks, now dropping down the factory as well. We're going to start pumping out those Marines 2 at a time. Always nice to have those bad boys going. We'll have to see what Trigger decides to make here. As far as his stack of choice goes, he doesn't have 150 gas just yet to drop down a Stargate, so it's going to be instead a Twilight Council, because, I mean, that's a bit of a funky one, right? He made that at like 120 gas or so. It doesn't really matter that much, but it does slow you down ever so slightly if you want to go for like a really crisp blink timing. But then again, we've seen guys like, for example, Hero and MaxVax get a lot of success building a whole lot of gateways and just microing their Stalkers and their War Prism on the other side of the map. A lot of the other players, though, seem to be fond of just going for like 2 gateways, maybe with a robo facility, and then expand behind it.
Yeah, and here's some inside baseball on Trigger, by the way, for you, Loco. He does not like Stargate. Give him the option. He is not going to go for it. He really likes to go for Twilight. And now we're going to see an Adept go down. Nice job there, Future, on this around. Just not something that Trigger expected. But yeah, so he'll go 2 gate, he'll go 3 gate, he'll go 4 gate. But he just really does not like Stargate play. And this is actually probably a bit of a downside to Trigger, even as good as this PVT is. Because it's not quite max packs where you know he's going to 4 gate you and he's going to kill you anyways. He's not quite that good. But if I'm Future and I'm preparing, I'm not prepping anti-Stargate builds. I'm prepping anti-Twilight builds. I'm getting ready for that because I know that Trigger very rarely opens Stargate.
And you're absolutely right. He decides to go for that blink upgrade in this particular game as well. And it looks like we're heading on over down towards the 3rd base location as well at the 9 o'clock position on this map. So pretty conservative opener here. This is one of those builds where you shouldn't really be taking a whole lot of damage. Now, we've already seen it get punished previously in this tournament as well, with Cyclone builds and whatnot catching the opponent off guard a little bit. Just earlier today, actually, with the double factory start. Obviously, at this point, Trigger has already seen tons of Marines. So he knows that that is not the case, and instead is going to be cloaked Banshees.
Yeah, this is interesting. It's cloaked Banshees, so tech pressure coming out of Future, but it's also kind of a 2-on-1. There's no 3rd barracks, but he did get that 2nd one, and no stim on the way just yet, though, right? You get that tech lab fairly quickly, so it's kind of a middle ground level of pressure, and I almost wonder, as we see this happening, whether we're going to see, okay, yeah, this is what we're going to see. So we've been seeing some Terran players go for this. Special is one of those that kind of does this more than anything, where Future is going to go for an all-in. He's going to get his Banshees, he's going to have Cloak, and it's going to be a combat shield timing off of 2 barracks with tanks, with Banshees, with things of that nature, and it's weird. Because who neglects stim, right? But it's just extra beef, it's extra anti-air against a Twilight or against a Stargate opener, and in general, even against a Twilight opener, you just have so much stuff.
So on the back of this, though, even though Trigger doesn't really know exactly what he's playing against, on the back of this, he is going into a Robo Bay, he is going into Charge. And obviously, he needs to figure out what's happening. But ultimately, if he can get Zealots out with Charge and he can get the Colossus going, that would be amazing. The problem is, we're quite a ways away from that, right? It's still going to be at least a minute or two until those units really properly hit the battlefield. And Future is already going. That Combat Shield upgrades is like 90% of the way done. Those Marines are suddenly going to find a shield in their backpack that gives them plus 10 HP. It's a very substantial upgrade and one that may very well allow him to get the kill in the third.
Yeah, I think that is almost a given at this point. The Cyclone gets low, but Trigger doesn't target it in time. Stalkers, yeah, they just recalled, so they're not going to be able to join things. More are going to try to warp in, and you're right, Charge is so far away. 10 probes have died as well. So yeah, Trigger, he maybe saw the Marines moving out here, but man, Loco, this is such a tough situation. Stalkers, they're gonna blink on top of the tanks, but they miss Micro. So much damage being done. One tank falls, but this Stalker count rapidly diminishing. This is rough for Trigger right now.
Trigger also was not super quick right there on the first Colossus, if I'm not mistaken. He does blink forward once again and gets rid of finally that second siege tank too. These things should start looking a little bit better, though. He hasn't quite lost that many workers yet. I mean, he did lose quite a few, but he also killed a bunch of SCVs to make up for it. This is a very committed attack, however, and there's a lot more reinforcements right now coming in for the Terran player. Observer is gone, so that Banshee is gonna have a field day.
I love that scan for Future. Just target down the Observer as long as possible, and this Colossus is gonna show up. It doesn't have extended thermal lance. There's no shield battery to defend it. Banshees actually kill Colossus really nicely, so this Colossus, it shows up, it's immediately dead. This is a build that Future went for in part because I think, again, Trigger's the player you can scout in PvT. Trigger is a player that you know pretty much what he's gonna do. So you go for something like this. It's weird, but it is a timing that kills this when your Charge wasn't done, Colossus wasn't done, there's no extended thermal lance. Another Observer goes down, although Banshees don't have enough energy for Cloak. Trigger, this was an excellent build order from Future, really just to counter Trigger.
Siege tank over here gets misrallied, so I don't think it's going to be able to make its way back home, but that was a ton of damage done right now. And on the back of this, we've got ourselves Stimpack now finished up, as well as the +1 infantry weapons on the way. Third command center about halfway done. Additional barracks are coming up as well. Funky little opener right here for Future for sure, because pretty much all the early game pushes with Marines that we see in, well, all StarCraft matchups are based around the Stimpack research. But this is a push that is based around the combat shields here instead. Those Banshees, by the way, still got a couple kills as well in the top left-hand corner. There's 4 of them in total here. We've got loads of Banshees.
Yeah, I mean, some Banshees are good. More must be better, right? At this point,
what's better than 2 Banshees? 3 Banshees, obviously.
Yeah, and 4 Banshees, even better. Loco, it makes sense. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
That's math. Yeah, it's just math.
Oh no. Now he gets a disruptor.
This is so rough. God, at some point you want to rip off the Band-Aid too, right? When you see a Colossus getting killed by Banshees, you're already kind of hurting, but now that this disruptor also gets picked up, I think a sentry ended up falling just now. I mean, close your eyes, Protoss players.
I don't think Protoss players have ever been as upset as Gumiho making top 4 in the GSL, because yes, this is a build that Special does occasionally, but like, close your eyes, man. Look at this build. This is a Gumi build, right? And doing this, like doing crazy builds to Classic in the round of 4, making that run through. It just kind of reminded Terrans that shenanigans like this exist. It's like, for us, we're already hurting before the patch, right? Now you got to do this to them.
There's still a very small chance right here for Trigger that he hits the Purification Nova of a lifetime. But he's gonna need about 3 of them. Well, here's the first one. Didn't happen. All right.
And it's gonna be a while, because you say we need 3 of them. There's 1 disruptor on the map right now.
Yeah, there's 1 disruptor. It's that same one.
Man.
It's that same one, of course.
Yeah.
Do you not go for the Banshee speed upgrade in these sort of scenarios? When you make this many Banshees, I feel like the Hyperflight Rotors is a no-brainer. I say that all the time and nobody ever gets it, but still, I feel like we can't go for it anymore in this market. GG is finally cool. But Future winning a very fun game number 1 here, playing a cool build for sure that completely hits the opponent right before they get that power spike, right? So you have that weird transitional moment where you've got, like 2 gateways, you got some blink, and you're not really dying to like a Widowmine drop, but there's like a timing window there of like a minute or two where, yeah, you fired up your next upgrade, in this particular case, Charge, and you've started up your transition towards Colossus, but you're very vulnerable in the meantime. And traditional timing attacks, well, they hit a little bit after this particular one that Future ended up going for, but yeah, the one that Future chose to go for there in game number 1 of this best of 3, it hit at the perfect moment.
That it did. And, you know, we look at this. Something you actually, I think, brought up during the break, Loco, was how Trigger has owned Future recently. If Future wins this series, this will only be the second time in 11 games that Future wins the series. So that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at qualification. We're looking at pride. And we're also looking at whether the two of us together can pronounce Alcyone properly.
Alcyone. I think that's about right, yeah.
I looked it up. You know, you can go and there are a lot of words. There'll be like a 10-second YouTube video like, here's how to pronounce this word. And to be fair, in a lot of languages, the C is pronounced as a K, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like we're getting closer. Yeah, and like the Greek is Alky, I think.
I think that's about right, yes.
Actually, no, it is, because there's no C in Greek. Kappa is the cuss sound. There's no C. It's alpha, beta, gamma, delta. There's no C.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Alcyone? Nah. Alcyone. LQ1, and next map pool, we're going to get LQ2. I'm excited.
And I love how we were always getting LQ1 on game 2, so it works out even better. In the bottom left, though, crazy build in game 1. It's Future.
And his opponent up here in the top right. Hope he's not getting triggered. It's Trigger. Sorry. I've been wanting to make that pun for too long. I know it's really bad. That is one of the worst puns you could possibly make, but I had to do it. Sorry, guys.
Loco, you've been casting with me all day.
It's been a long day. Okay, we've been here for a while.
The bar of bad puns is already so low that I don't even know that joke can kind of squeak under.
I like how you giggled a little bit too. I heard you breathe out through your nose. That's like the biggest compliment a man can get.
Well, that's actually like, you know, when you make a bad joke and someone groans, that's the crown.
Yeah, no, I will be aiming for that next. It has to be worse though than Trigger getting triggered. So I don't know if I can find anything like that.
I don't know. My mind immediately goes to like, well, he's not Winnie the Pooh, but he is TRIGGER. That spells trigger.
Nah, I don't know about that one.
All right, did you not experience the 100-acre wood as a child?
The what? Sorry?
100-acre wood. Where Winnie the Pooh lived. 100-acre wood.
We don't even use acres over here, BL. What are you talking about right now?
The 66.5 hectare wood.
100-acre wood. Oh, it's a song?
Well, it's also like that's a Kenny Loggins song, but also Christopher Winnie the Pooh and all of his friends live in the 100-acre wood.
Oh, I've watched a lot of Winnie the Pooh as a kid, but I don't remember any of the details, if I'm being honest with you.
Please tell me in the Dutch translation they don't convert the 100-acre wood into hectares or square kilometers or something.
I don't know.
That'd be so weird.
I can try and look it up. I actually don't know the forest that Winnie the Pooh lives in.
That's 100-acre wood.
I'm trying to figure this out.
Anyways, as we get into game 2 here, it's going to be a similar opening coming out of Future. He got the Marine. Now there's the Reactor, so Marines behind that. And that, one thing we didn't quite talk about last game, but it's just as a result of going for Marines like this and really kind of skipping the Reapers and skipping the gas expenditure early is, well, your factory gets faster, which means your starport can get faster, which means maybe you can hit with a faster cloak or something like that. This time, he's going to Reactor out what it looks like, I assume, some Hellions. And there we go, Hellions on the way. So a little bit different. We're not going to see the same crazy build in game 2.
No, but there's still some opportunity, of course, to get some damage done on the other side of the map. Trigger once again going into the good old Blinky upgrade, I would imagine. The Blinky boy, always a nice upgrade to get going here. And we've seen a lot of Protoss players have a lot of success with it, but you're definitely right. He doesn't seem to be too fond of going for that Stargate opener here instead. Widow Mines, by the way, after the first 2 Hellions.
Okay. And they're being reactored at as well. So this feels like a 4 Widow Mine drop, which is, you know, that's a lot more committed. We've seen a decent amount of PVT today, and almost always it's 1 Widow Mine. It's 2 Widow Mines. It's pressure, you know, it tries to find something, but it's not committing super heavily to it. Future, though, he's gonna live or die by the mines, man. He's gonna live or die.
Yep. I heard they are a pretty good unit. The guys on Reddit have told me repeatedly, over and over and over again. I honestly feel like we haven't seen that many crazy detonations, though, over the last couple of days of broadcast. But maybe this game will give us some of the explosions that everybody's been talking about. The main downside usually of the Widowmine drop is not really the first time the units go across the map, but it's when Protoss is really busy and occupied trying to put out fires left, right, and center, right? And then one of those sneaky Widowmines manages to make its way to the mineral line. This happens all the time with like triple and quadruple gate openers, where Protoss is so busy microing on the other side of the map, trying to juggle those stalkers, blink them away, and then suddenly, in the meantime, on the other side, we have that Widowmine drop getting queued up.
Yeah, and for now, the Hellion getting in there and getting a probe is really nice. And now Trigger is someone in position. He's got a stalker here, but Loco, one stalker does not kill this in time. So Trigger, oh, he gets a stalker. Very nice there. Future targets that down. Honestly, versus one probe, it's worth it. And now there's one untriggered Widowmine right now.
There's still one. Ooh, okay. Those probes, I wasn't sure what mineral field they were clicked on. Turns out that was not within range right there. Medevac ends up getting sniped. Okay, good body blocking over here as well, and everything gets cleaned up. 2 Stalkers and an Adept in total have gone down in this game for, well, 4 Widowmines and a Medevac.
Yeah, the question now, so he got 2, instead of getting 4 probes, or maybe a couple more, he gets 2 probes, mining time lost, obviously, and 2 Stalkers as well. And in the balance of things, as we look at this, Loco, which would you prefer? 4 probes, or kind of what Trigger just lost right then?
Yeah, it's always a little hard to say, right, in these kind of scenarios. I think not having to worry anymore about those Widowmines is really sweet, because it's the worst when it's just sort of hanging off to the side of your natural expansion or hanging out in that dead space to the bottom of your main, because you always have to be worried about it coming back in. You can never really breathe, you know? You have to be on edge for the remainder of the game, so getting rid of it is really quite nice. And when you don't take critical amounts of damage, it's not really that bad.
I like that move from Trigger, though. Again, there's only one tank. It's not a lot of damage there, so you can blink the Stalkers in. And he just forced Future to waste a scan. He wanted to get that Observer, did not want Trigger to be able to put the pressure on, and, well, he just kind of gets away with it now. But Future, he's going to be getting ready to move out pretty quickly in the next 30 seconds, or maybe a little bit longer, as, well, Stim is going to be done. +1's going to be done. We're going to get combat shields, and anything Trigger can do right now to kill Marines, kill Marauders, even get damage done is value, as he's going to look to defend this, because, I mean, Loco, this is a much more standard Terran push. It's 3-1-1. It's not Cloak Banshees and combat shields before Stim and all that zaniness of game 1.
No, and it hits a little bit differently too, right? So this time around, there will already be a Colossus out. Charge is going to be like 80% of the way done. So Future is indeed going to start moving, but this is something that Trigger will be a lot more comfortable against. That being said, though, this is not going to be an easy attack, because that is still an awful lot of Terran. It's 58, 59-ish army supply right now for the Terran versus only 40 of Protoss. So you have to be so careful here with that army movement. I like what Trigger is doing, though, forcing the siege up, blinking away again, slowing down this attack in whatever way he can, because ultimately that income advantage is going to give him the bigger army.
And this is odd for Future as well here. We have to hold that thought. Great force field, but he's going to be able to get out in time. Widowmines get some decent connections here. But Future isn't getting concussive shells. He's only using one of his tech labs on his barracks, so the combat shields are actually late for this push. It's a bit awkward right there. Stalkers, they're going to blink on top of the tanks as much as they can, but they're not getting them. They didn't target them. And now the Bio's going to get on top of the Zealots, on top of these Stalkers. It's still hard for Future push, but he's going to carpet bomb, not on top, but into the main base instead. And this army of Trigger is just not ready to get in position, not just yet. Stalkers are going to try to warp in as they can. And Future, I think he's going to be forced to give this position up. This was awkward.
I don't love this. I really don't quite like this boost into the main base. It looked very confident, but oftentimes confident moves in StarCraft are pretty decent, but he's not really getting a whole lot done. Reinforcing units seemingly are just move commanding over here. Maybe all army hotkeyed earlier on accident. Those Colossi are still around, right? And that is really quite nice. Really, it's only been Zealots and Stalkers going down so far on the side of Trigger, and that's something he can recover from. I don't think you need to chase this with your entire force, but okay. Well, there's nothing all too crazy right now moving on the mini-map at the bottom, but you're never entirely sure what Terran's up to.
Yeah, this was so awkward from Future. Honestly, a little bit from Trigger as well. But he tries to run pell-mell, can't find his way into the main base. The warpins are there. He tries to take a fight backwards. He rallies units through, and they just die to Colossus without micro, just standing there. And I love this decision from Trigger now. He understands that he just killed a lot. All right, that Future is, despite having a third base on the way now. By the way, that's very
building
late.
it on position too. Okay.
Hey, sometimes, man, you just got to make stuff happen. Sometimes when you're behind, you got to cut and take some risks. But because Trigger knows that he really held that, all things considered, pretty nicely, there's going to be a fourth Colossus on the way. The Viking count will never catch up to this. Trigger's going to have a timing in about a minute, maybe, where actually even less than that, where there's just not going to be anything that properly deals with this army well enough. Even as Future's getting Vikings now, he's not going to go to 12. He's not going to know that he's got to go to 12. He's going to be playing against 3 Colossus.
Yeah, I understand that he's not really getting too eager to fight, though, because we see it go wrong so many times, right? He's kind of lost the meat in this army, Protoss that is. He lost a lot of the Stalkers and the Zealots, so he's finding himself in a situation where, yeah, he could probably go for an attack, but how many times have we seen the Colossi kill all of the Marines in about half a second, and then all of the Colossi die to the Marauders? So I can't really blame Trigger here for not getting too eager to fight. That does now give Future quite a bit of time here to get some army once again out, and his economy is nothing amazing. I would love to see a Prism out or something like that on the other side of the map to warp in some Zealots and get some harassment damage done, because ultimately hurting the Terran here in any way is gonna be very handy here for Trigger.
And this vision though from Trigger is really nice. He was defending the 4th base. He wanted to make sure that he would, you know, not lose that 4th base, but there was a world where he was just gonna get caught woefully out of position. But if we look at this army of Future right now, he's got 6 Vikings, he's got a couple Ghosts, he's got Widow Mines. Against this 4 Colossus, 3 Marauder composition, this army of Trigger right now is so much better than what Future's trying to get aggressive with. And if Future has to, I'd love to see Liberators, I'd love to see more Vikings, even just get a second eBay, go to 2-2 or something. But this army that he's got right now, I mean, Loco, without a beautiful fight, I don't have a lot of confidence in this working.
There's no Ghost or anything here in the mix, and he actually gets caught off guard here as well. I mean, there's like 2 Ghosts here, sorry, correction. But that is still an absolutely massive Protoss ball. Good control right there by Trigger, picking up the weakened units to the best of his abilities. Ultimately, though, it looks like the Colossi are just tearing this army apart. A lot of those Immortals helping out as well. Good economy here still in the back it is for Trigger, but Future has been building up as well his worker count, so... It's been looking pretty desperate for Terran for a while, but it's not like he's, you know, gonna just lose the game to the next attack here of Protoss, I don't think, because Protoss is just a little too concerned here to just march across the map.
And that was a wild fight from Trigger as well. I think he was just really confident that he was going to win regardless of what happened. But he didn't target the Vikings down at all. His Stalkers were just in a line, blinking backwards, not getting those down. If he does that, he kills everything. The Colossus stay alive, but now there's only one of them. Blinks on top. Vikings should fall. And now we're at the, look at this. We are at 4 Immortals right now. This composition here, I mean, there is enough Colossus to make sure the Marines die, and Immortals are shredding everything. Even as the second to last fight was a little awkward, Trigger takes us to game 3.
I think Trigger realized he was pretty far ahead there for a long time, but he was also a bit scared to properly go across the map. So that when Terran finally met him on his side of the map, he's like, okay, fine. I'll stand here with my massive stocky army and I'll just try to, shoot my lasers at whatever I can. And ultimately that fight may have not been as perfect as it was, but he did find himself in a position where he slowly started tiptoeing towards the other side, catching units on the watchtower. I mean, that was an uphill battle there already for a while for Future, and well, Trigger, he played it out cautiously, but he did end up getting it done right there in the end.
And you know, I guess I'm part of it as well, right? Is that it is so hard to run across the map on Al-Qaini because there's that where the Terran expanded, you pretty much have a tailor-made high ground surround. So attacking into that without forcing your opponent into you is painful, and it's really hard. But on top of that, Trigger, as much as we're criticizing, oh wow, you could have won that fight even harder if you targeted the Vikings down. Trigger didn't have to do perfect. He just had to do good enough. And good enough, good enough was just killing off enough of that army that because of his economy and because of reinforcements and warp-ins, he was going to be fine. But now, Loco, we're getting ready to move into our last map of the day. It's going to be Solaris. And before we load in, who moves to the playoffs? Is it Trigger? Is it Future?
You want my prediction?
Yeah, one game.
I think it's going to be Trigger.
I'll buy that one.
Yep.
There we go. In the bottom left, though, Loco's favorite to take this third and final game. It's Trigger.
And up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, Solaris, we're looking inside of the main base of Future.
Man, Loco, as I'm getting these games set up, the fact that Future has, this has happened like to me twice now, where the Future, his color is blue, right? But his logo is red. When I'm setting the hotbar,
Wardy brought up the exact same thing yesterday, where he was getting very upset. This was a little bit of a different situation where the player who was playing in red had a blue clan tag, and the player playing blue had the red clan tag, and he was getting very tripped up over it. There's only one color to deal with here, Bio. I think you got this.
Okay, look, gray is like, gray and blue are close enough. Okay, that like, look, okay, a gunmetal gray is bluish. It's close enough, Loco.
True. Any color is close enough to blue, I guess.
I mean, I don't think yellow is close enough to blue.
No?
No. In fact, it's, you know, they're both primary colors, so they're very much not blue.
Fair. But gray is close to blue?
Yeah. Gray can be considered like a faded blue. You're telling me that, like, okay, you ever go...
Gray can also be a faded yellow.
Not as much. Okay, so like, you go, you're cleaning a corner of the house that's like been behind a couch or something and hasn't been dusted for a while, and you like there's that bluish sheen of dust on it. You're trying to tell me that that looks yellow?
I think they call that mold, Bio.
That is not mold. I guess y'all in, I guarantee, like, I guess y'all in the Netherlands don't have the same type of dust we have in the United States, but
I don't know. You may actually be onto something. I'm not sure.
I mean, there are definitely
I just
like
find cat hair everywhere I go, personally. I move the couch around, oh, cat hair. I move up a pillow, oh, cat hair. You move any sort of blanket or, oh, cat hair. Yeah. Luckily, not so much this season of the year, but it gets pretty bad, man, when they're getting ready for winter and for summer.
Talk about getting ready for things. Look at what Future's got in store for us. He eBay blocks the natural, so it forces Trigger to take the third. And then he's building Cyclones, and he's proxying a starport. I don't think this is for drop play. This feels like Liberator 1-1-1-ish, just craziness. And he's got, yeah, this is really committed. I mean, it's always committed coming out of this type of build, but this is tech committed coming out of Future. This is interesting.
Yeah, Trigger also now going into the good old Stargate, right? Okay, he actually decides to open up with a Phoenix first. You brought it up earlier. He's not a huge fan of playing the style if he doesn't have to, it seems. Preferring maybe that blink upgrade a little bit, but going for the exact same strategy 3 times in a row in a best of 3, probably not your best call. So I have to see how this plays out. Those Phoenixes, of course, have a ton of potential, but it is a little bit risky.
I mean, against Marines and Cyclones and Vikings rallying across, I guess he's building that back first. This is brilliant serious planning from Future because, okay, so Trigger, first of all, he does the same thing 2 times in a row. You expect that. Probably in game 3, there might be something a little bit different. On top of that, you force your opponent to expand at the third, and therefore it's really hard to cover with Twilight Tech. So Hellions, things like that are scary. It makes more sense to go Stargate, and now he's hitting with this push with 2 Cyclones, with all the Marines, and the repair on the Cyclones as well. This Phoenix count, Trigger's going to keep committing to it because it feels like it's the only thing he can make. This is a hard hold, even with Overcharge doing what it can here. The Marines are just, I mean, things are dying though, so there's that.
Yeah, the battery overcharge is so handy here, and it's buying him a ton of time. Good control right there as well by Trigger, getting the medevac here in the end. There's a lot more shield batteries coming up, though. Up to this point, only a single Adept has fallen on the side of Protoss. But yeah, now he needs to pull the workers as well. Cyclone is joining in, and I think my prediction may be wrong, Bio. This is a lot of damage here being done by our Terran.
That it is, and with just the Liberator on top, notice he doesn't siege it up at first because, well, all the Phoenix are low, and splash damage is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But now Stalkers are going to try to get on top. The repair is good, but the Liberators will still fall even still. And now it's 2 Phoenix, a couple Stalkers, 2 Adepts warping in at a time here, and has he held? It's starting to look pretty solid for Trigger right now.
The Phoenixes have been denying a lot of these units, right? Like, they're not putting in a ton of work. They got rid of the medevac, I suppose, but they're just such a big target. And they're actually also surprisingly tanky units that take a long time to shoot down. Now even the siege tank is in a little bit of trouble. I mean, microing a siege tank on siege through a speed zone is not something we get to see every day of the week. And ultimately, yeah, this Void Ray is going to seal the deal for sure. Ultimately, Trigger now finds himself with 2 expansions, or 2 bases in total, and Future is still stuck on 1.
Yeah, and we saw Trigger. I mean, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but he danced his units for a second after he got that tank down. I mean, he knows right now that he is in a fantastic position. Now, he may not be able to break his opponent. Bio, who cares? They're not killing the Void Ray. Everything's dead. Future, this all in was so close, Loco, to making things happen. And now he's dead. There is no future for him in this game. Trigger, maybe he didn't 3-0, but he moves on to the playoffs. And Future